So we will look at this problem. Z Limited manufacturers three types of products, namely P, Q and R, the data relating to a period or as under. So there are three products for which we have to do the activity based costing. What all the details available? Let's see. We have machine hours per unit, then direct labor hours per unit at 20. So both are at 20. Then we have direct material per unit. Then you have production unit. Currently it is on the traditional and absorbed on the basis of machine hour. Factory overhead is 6 per hour. So what are the details related to the activities? So you will have batch size, then number of purchase orders per batch, then number of inspection per batch. So here everything is per batch. Then we have machine setup cost, machine operation cost, inspection cost and procurement related cost. The data is not given in absolute rupees but in percentage. So that means you have to first calculate the overhead, total overhead, then divide. So we have traditional method, then compare it with the ABC method. Both are available. So let's start solving the traditional method. We have the usual format, particulars, then three columns for three products. So you have direct material, direct labor, then you get prime cost. Let us also divide into unit and total values. So let's record the direct material 90, 80 and 120. And next, when it comes to direct labor, you have to careful whether it is per unit or per hour. So here it's given labor hours per unit at 20 per hour. So that means I have to multiply each hour by 20. So for P it will be 80, Q it will be 240 and for R it will be 160. So the same I will produce here, 80, 240 and 120, 160. So now I can get my prime cost. After this I have to record the overhead. So overhead is absorbed on the basis of 6 per hour. So that means whatever hours are consumed for PQR, so per unit it is absorbed at 6 per hour. At this point we can also write the total if required, but overhead also we can calculate at the unit and total level later, so that is also possible. So using the recovery rate of 6 per hour, now P will take 60 per unit, Q will get 108 per unit and R will get 84 per unit. These are per unit, so I can directly add it under prime cost. With this I can now get total cost of sales, both in terms of per unit and the total. So for P it will be 230 rupees and for Q it will be 428 and for R it will be 364 rupees. For ABC method, I first have to take the total overhead cost and apply the percentages given to get the activity cost pool. So I have four different types of activity: machine setup cost, operation cost, inspection cost and procurement cost. Now these percentages I have to convert it into rupees. Since the company uses 6 per hour as a overhead recovery rate or the absorption rate, total overhead we have to calculate. So that depends on totally how many hours are there. For for P it is 3000 units into 10 plus Q it is 5000 into 18. For R 20,000 into 14. So all of this added together will give total hours. Then when we multiply that with 6 rupee per hour, we will get the total overheads. So total 4 lakh hour multiplied by 6 per hour, we will get 24 lakh as the total overhead cost. Now this has to be divided among 4 activities to get the activity cost pool. So here we have 4 activities: machine setup, machine operation, inspection and procurement cost. So 20% of 24 lakh, 30% of 24 lakh, 40% and then 10%. So these totals will come out to be 24 lakh. Machine setup cost will be 4.8 lakh. Machine operation cost will be 7.2 lakh. Inspection is 9.6 lakh and procurement is 2.4 lakh. So total has to be 24 lakh. Next, these costs have to be divided by the driver units. So which are the drivers? For setup, per batch there will be one setup. So it will be number of setup or number of batches is the driver for setup cost. Similarly, machine operation cost, it is machine hours. And for inspection is also done at batch level. So this also will be number of inspection or number of batches. Then procurement will be number of purchase orders released. Once we have identified which are the drivers, now you have to calculate what are the total of those drivers available. So since batch size is given here, 3000 units are now produced per batch in the units of 150. So that means there will be 20 batches. Similarly, Q will have 100 batches. So driver units we will write now. So 20 batches of P. Similarly, how many batches of Q? Q will be 5000 divided by 500. 100 batches. So it is better to compute in a separate driver units table. So P will be 20 batch, Q will be 10 batch and R will be 20 batch. Total 50 batches. These are required, the total driver units for computation of activity driver rate. So for first activity it is 50 batches or 50 setups. So driver rate will be 4.8 lakh divided by 50 batch. So per setup we will get 9600. For machine operation cost, the driver is machine hour. Total machine hours we have already calculated. It is 4 lakh units. So let's write in the driver units 4 lakh units. So 7.2 lakh divided by 4 lakh hours, we will get per hour rate of 1.8. Similarly, the number of inspection per batch data is also given in the table. So we multiply that with the batch. Also number of orders are given. The total is 320. With this we will also get the driver rates for remaining 2 activity. So this is the first step end. Second step is the consumption of activity of each product is multiplied by the driver rate which was just determined in the step 1. So let's also write the driver rate in the second column. In the subsequent column, what we will write? We will write PQR with 2 sub columns. First column will have the activities consumed by the product, and next multiplying the driver rate with the activity we will get ABC overhead for that product. P totally 20 setups, 3000 into 10, 30,000 hours, and number of inspection is 100. Then purchase orders released 60 POs. So when we multiply these 2 columns, we will get overhead for P based on the activity based costing. You should use the memory plus function of your calculator to calculate the total of this. So total overhead is 7.71 lakh. and P its total 3000 units. When we divide this, we will get per unit cost of overhead based on the ABC. Similarly, we carry out the same operation for Q and R. Add the prime cost. When you add the prime cost, you will get the total cost per unit under ABC. Similarly, we calculate for others based on the same. So in the bottom table, you have direct material and labor, which are part of your prime cost. Then you have activities, hours per 1000 unit batch in terms of fridge hour and packing hours. And also you have overhead details given, direct labor, fridge and packing. So direct labor is a prime cost. It's not a overhead cost. That is why the column is blank. But activity level is important. Then you have ABC cost pools in terms of fridge and packing. So what you have to do, you have to do with the help of traditional system for the chocolate ice cream, compute profit per 1000 ice cream. So there are three, you have to only calculate for the chocolate ice cream. Then second part of the question is the same using ABC. So in the traditional system, the direct labor hour is the allocation base. That means first you have to calculate the total overhead, which is already given. So 2.1 crore plus 1.5 crore divided by the labor hours. Why? Because the basis of direct labor is the allocation base. So in the numerator we have 3.6 crore, denominator we have 24,000 hours. So we will get 1500 per hour as the overhead rate, overhead absorption rate. Now let's compute the per unit in the traditional system. So let's create three columns: per unit in the second column and third column per 1000 ice cream instead of total. So let's start with the direct labor and direct material. Here overhead is absorbed at 1500 per hour. Direct material is 15 and direct labor is 2 per unit. So both are represented in per unit. We can directly take them and compute the total in terms of per 1000 ice cream. So total per unit is 17 and total per 1000 ice cream is 17,000. Now let's see how many hours are used for chocolate. So in the table it says per 1000 unit batch we need 10 hours. So 10 hours multiplied by 1500 per hour, we can directly take it in the total column, 15,000 rupees. Now the total cost will come to 32,000, or per unit cost will come as 32 rupees. Now let's look at the second part of the question, which is on the ABC we have to do the same thing. For a chocolate ice cream, A, compute the activity cost driver rate. So we should have total cost pool, that is the step 1, and for driver rate we should need total driver units. In the question, the overhead cost pools are given, also the activity levels are also given. So it is a straightforward thing. So first column we write activities, then the overhead cost or activity cost pool for fridge storage and packing we will write. Next we have to divide these by driver units. So driver units are directly given 1900 fridge hours and 950 packing hours. When you divide column 2 by column 3, you will get the driver rate. So driver rate for fridge hours is 2.1 crore divided by 1900 fridge hours. This will be 11,053 per fridge hour. Similarly, we calculate for packing hours. For packing, we get 15,789 per packing hours. So the step 1 is over. So part A is also over. Step B is we multiply this driver rate by the activity utilization of chocolate ice cream. Second question asks compute the overhead cost as per ABC. So allocation will be based on the utilization of activity by ice cream. So we write two drivers which are fridge hours and packing hours. Then driver rate which was calculated in earlier step, we write it here. Next column, what are the driver units for ice cream? That we represent here and then multiply it with the driver rate. So for ice cream, chocolate ice cream, fridge hour is 1 and packing hour is 0.5. We write it here. Now we multiply driver rate with the driver units and we will get cost allocated based on ABC method. So this is the second step. When we total it, it is coming to 18,947.5. This is just the overhead. To this we have to add the prime cost to get the total overhead, total cost based on the ABC. So we will compute the values for 1000 ice creams of chocolate. So selling price is 75. So revenue is 75,000 rupees minus prime cost, direct material and direct labor of chocolate ice cream, and then overhead based on ABC. So direct material is 15,000, direct labor is 2,000, overhead we just got in the previous step 18,947. When we subtract revenue with all these costs, we will get 39,052.5. So that is the profit when computed through activity based costing method. Let's now move on to another previous year question. Hope this was understood. Now let's look at the December 24 question paper on activity based costing. Asthma Limited manufactures three products PQR which are similar in nature and are usually produced in production runs of 100 units. Here production run and batches are used interchangeably. You should be aware about that. Product P and R require both machine hours and assembly hours, whereas product Q requires only machine hours. The overhead incurred are given in the table. So activity cost pools are directly given here. There are 5. And in the bottom table you have activity utilization. So in any questions you should be able to identify these two. Whether driver units are given or the activity levels are given, then the activity cost pools are given. Now let's write the drivers against each activity cost pools. First one is machining department expense, driver will be machining hours. Similarly, for assembly department expense, it will be assembly hours. Setup cost will be number of setups. So number of batches or number of setups. Then for stores receiving cost, we have number of requisition raised on stores. That is directly given. We write it there. Then order processing and dispatch, this will be based on customer orders executed, that is also given directly. The last one is inspection and quality control cost. Typically it is done once per a production run or once per a batch. So we have to take the batches, number of batches. So let's also write another activity level, which is number of batches, which is not given. So we will first write that. So every batch has 100 units. So to 15,000 units will be produced in 150 batches. Similarly for Q it will be 120 batches, and for R it will be 180 batches. Now we have to calculate the total driver units. So that is nothing but sum of all the activities by each activity types. So units produced and sold is not an activity. Next we will move on to machine hours work. 30,000 plus 48,000 plus 54,000. So that is 1,32,000 hours. After that we next have assembly hours. 15 plus 27, 42,000 hours. Next we have total number of batches 450. Number of store requisition is 40 plus 30 plus 50, 120. Then total number of customer orders executed. Total is 350. The last one is again number of batches 450 production runs. Now next step is calculation of driver rate. This is obtained by dividing the total cost of this activity divided by total driver units. Now we have got all the driver rates for all 6 types of activity. This is step 1. Next, in the step 2, what we have to do, prepare the statement showing detail of overhead cost allocated to each product using activity based costing. So in the step 2, you have to multiply the driver rate with the activity usage by each product. So first column is activity, second column is driver rate, then third and subsequent columns are the activity utilization by respective products. We write the driver rate which we got from the previous step in the second column. In the third columns we write first for P the units consumed by P. Now we have written the driver units of P. Next is multiplication of driver units and the driver rate. Subsequently, we have to calculate same way for Q and R also, driver units and activity cost. Now pause the video here and calculate the activity cost for all the activities. Now on the screen I have calculated the total activity overhead for P, Q and R. So these are the overhead as per ABC, and this is the statement. To this, direct material and direct labor, if you add, you will get the total cost. Then divide by the units, you will get the cost per unit based on ABC.